And away we go, episode 1252 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. It is the 2-year anniversary of the Washington Commanders announcing the hiring of Dan Quinn as head coach. The team on Saturday afternoon, February 3rd, 2024, announced Quinn as the 31st head coach in franchise history. Also, this is the 1-year anniversary of Commanders managing partner Josh Harris at an end-of-season press conference saying that the team was sticking with the name Commanders. Take it back to February 3rd, 2025, an exchange between then Commanders insider Stephen Wino of the Associated Press and Josh Harris.
Is it safe to say the Commanders name is around just to stay? Is that safe to say from your standpoint?
Yes. And we're actually, I think it's now being embraced by our team, by our culture, by our coaching staff. And so, we're going with that.
And that, my friends, may well have been the death blow for another rebrand for the NFL team of Washington, D.C. Question from Stephen Wino, quote, is it safe to say that the Commanders' name is around to stay? Is that safe to say? And quote, answer from Josh Harris, quote, yeah, end quote. Succinct. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Well, we on Monday's show, episode 1251, spoke with Kevin Sheehan, the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast, about the state of the Washington Commanders brand on the 4-year anniversary of the official announcement of that brand on 2.2.22. We on this installment of the podcast welcome back Kevin to talk actual Commanders football. Next segment, conversation with Kevin about the team having promoted assistant quarterbacks coach David Blough to offensive coordinator and having hired Minnesota Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach Daronte Jones as defensive coordinator. David and Daronte. Kevin will give us his analysis of the hirings, including why the team parted with offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and which coordinator hire is more crucial for Dan Quinn keeping his job as the team's head coach beyond the 2026 season. Also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals. The Caps, they now have won 3 consecutive games, a 4-1 win over the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena on Monday night. The Caps' starting goaltender for a second consecutive game was Clay Stevenson, and he in what was his 3rd career NHL regular season game stopped 29 of the 30 shots on goal that he faced, including all 18 of the shots on goal that he faced over the final 2 periods. So before we get to feedback, Commanders-related news in the NFL's 2026 coaching cycle. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they on Monday afternoon officially announced the hiring of Jason Simmons as defensive pass game coordinator / defensive backs coach. He spent the last 2 seasons as the Commanders' defensive pass game coordinator. Him leaving for the Steelers was first reported this past Thursday morning. Also, the Denver Broncos, they on Monday afternoon announced having promoted offensive pass game coordinator / quarterbacks coach Davis Webb to offensive coordinator. We this past Friday afternoon had reports that the Broncos had requested to interview Commanders assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson for the Broncos offensive coordinator job, but that job has gone to Webb. Meantime, one of the best baseball analytics sites, Fangraphs, it on Monday came out with the outlet's playoff odds for the 2026 season. When it comes to projected win totals for MLB's 2026 regular season, Fangraphs has the Washington Nationals at just 69 wins and finishing 5th in the 5-team National League East. Fangraphs has the Baltimore Orioles at 84 wins, but finishing 4th in the 5-team American League East. What is a stacked AL East? What else is new? You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Billy D in Florida on winning in the NFL while having a highly paid quarterback. Writes Billy D. Continue to love the pod. Keep up the good work. Below are the 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. None advanced past the divisional round of the playoffs. What does that say? Does paying a quarterback top dollar take up too much of the cap and hurt the ability to build a championship roster? 2 of the 4 teams in the Final Four, New England and Denver, each has a quarterback on a rookie contract. Seattle has a retread, and LA has a veteran on a good deal. Hurry up, Washington, and win the Super Bowl before we have to make JD5 a top-paid quarterback. Thank you for the email, Billy D. Great topic. So here are the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of average annual value, AAV, per overthecap.com. Number 1, the Dallas Cowboys' Dak Prescott, $60 million. A four-way tie for number 2, the Buffalo Bills' Josh Allen, the Cincinnati Bengals' Joe Burrow, the Jacksonville Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence, and the Green Bay Packers' Jordan Love, each is at $55 million. Number 6, the Miami Dolphins' Tua Tagovailoa, $53.1 million. A two-way tie for number 7, the Detroit Lions' Jared Goff, and the San Francisco 49ers' Brock Purdy, each is at $53 million. Number 9, the Los Angeles Chargers' Justin Herbert, $52.5 million. Number 10, the Baltimore Ravens' Lamar Jackson, $52 million. Number 11, the Philadelphia Eagles' Jalen Hurts, $51 million. Number 12, the Arizona Cardinals' Kyler Murray, $46.1 million. Number 13, the Cleveland Browns' Deshaun Watson, $46 million. And tied for number 14, two guys, the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and you know who. Each is at $45 million. Yeah, not a single one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of AAV per overthecap.com advanced past the divisional round of the NFL playoffs for the 2025 season. But that's this season. There have been plenty of other recent seasons in which big money quarterbacks did advance deep in the playoffs. So the Super Bowl for last season was a matchup of big money quarterbacks and Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. Building a quality roster with a QB1 on a non-big money contract is easier than building a quality roster with a QB1 on a big money contract. But a good head of football operations can build a quality roster with a QB1 on a big money contract. And yes, regarding the Commanders' QB1, Jaden Daniels, the 2026 season is the final season before he becomes contract extension eligible in the 2027 offseason. 1 year from now, what will we be saying about whether the Commanders should sign Daniels to a mega money contract extension? Email from Craig in Manassas, Virginia. On what's going on with the Washington Post, we on this past Friday's show, episode 1250, spoke with legendary sports writer Richard Justice, who served as a Washington Redskins beat reporter and columnist and working for the Washington Post from February 1986 to July 2000. He was the Post beat reporter for the Skins for their 1991 Super Bowl championship season. And Richard gave us terrific insight and perspective on the legacy of the Washington Post sports department and on the Post greatly reducing, if not eliminating, its sports department. Writes Craig, "Hey Al, with the strong rumors about possible upcoming big layoffs at the Washington Post and maybe an elimination of the sports section entirely, it's just sad if this becomes true. I'm a longtime home delivery subscriber and a former newspaper carrier when a kid in Reston in the 80s. It has been nice to see the reactions and posts on X along with your post. I'm not naive enough to not understand the modern-day economics of the newspaper business, but it would be such a travesty to lose the Post sports section." Thank you for the email, Craig. The Washington Post sports department has done so much good work over the years and has featured so many talented people over the years. I hope that the Post does not entirely eliminate the sports department, and I certainly do not want people to lose their jobs. But as I discussed with Richard Justice, the Washington Post, like many traditional media outlets, is struggling big time. The Post in 2023 reportedly lost $77 million. The Post in 2024 reportedly lost $100 million. Those are jaw-dropping losses. Those are unsustainable losses. Something has to change. And as I also said on this past Friday's show, I do not like the direction of the Washington Post sports section in recent years. Way too much focus on national sports, including Olympic sports, not enough focus on the Commanders and other teams of the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm sure that the Post has had its reasons for this change, but the change, in my opinion, has not been for the better. The change has made the Post sports section much less of a must-read as compared to in the past. I'm not interested in figure skating, okay? I'm not interested in gymnastics. I'm not interested in skiing. No offense to those sports, great athletes. I wish them nothing but the best. But personally, I'm not interested in the number one newspaper of my area covering those sports at the expense of the teams that I care about. I want coverage of my teams, the teams of this region, the teams that I talk about on this podcast. Commanders, Nationals, Orioles, Capitals, Wizards, Maryland basketball and Maryland football, Georgetown basketball, Navy football, etc. That's what I want. And that's what the Post has gotten away from in recent years. And so it, for me, has stopped being a must-read. And I know that I'm not alone in feeling this way. And when it comes to the void being left in terms of coverage of the teams of this area, well, that's where this podcast comes in. There is no other media outlet, print, digital, radio, podcast, television, YouTube, whatever, that covers DC area sports like this podcast does, if I may pat this podcast on the back. And so please consider subscribing to the podcast. If you're not already doing that, subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. This episode of the podcast is for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, 1 month to the day of NFL insider Diana Rossini of The Athletic reporting that the Washington Commanders might part with offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, even if he didn't get a head coaching job. Quote, Washington has also had conversations about potentially moving on from Kingsbury, even if he doesn't get a head coaching job. Some of the buildings say there's been a disconnect between Kingsbury and general manager Adam Peters, end quote. That report was the first report of a lack of alignment between the team and Kingsbury, and sure enough, 3 days later, Kingsbury was gone. The Commanders on January 6th parted with offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr., even though the team to this day has not officially announced any of those departures, despite having announced new offensive and defensive coordinators. So the Commanders on January 10th announced having promoted assistant quarterbacks coach David Blough to offensive coordinator, and the team this past Friday morning, January 30th, announced having hired Minnesota Vikings defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach Daronte Jones as defensive coordinator. We welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast a good friend, Kevin Sheehan, the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast and the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show, weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the Team 980. You can follow Kevin on X at Kevin Sheehan DC. Kevin was with us on Monday's show, episode 1251, to discuss the state of the Washington Commanders brand on the 4-year anniversary of the official announcement of that brand on 2.2.22. And he's back with us now to talk actual Commanders football. You, like me, are a Cliff Kingsbury fan. You, like me, feel that he did a good job over his 2 seasons as Commanders offensive coordinator. I've said that I think that you can make the case that, considering the circumstances, he actually did a better job this season than he did last season. Where are you on the team having parted with Kingsbury now that we're about a month removed from that happening?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you said that, because I really think the performance by him this year has been incredibly distorted and described inaccurately. When you don't have your starting quarterback for 13 of the 17 games, Jaden played in 4 games start to finish, 99 times out of 100, your season is doomed. You've got no shot. And what he did with that offense, given how many pieces were missing throughout the year, I mean, they had games like against Seattle where they had no idea who was going to be at wide receiver in the game. They had guys coming off the street to play in that game. I thought he actually totally overachieved with the group he had this year. With that said, I was shocked. I mean, other than the report that came out that weekend, was it Diana who had that first report? I think it was. I was shocked. I mean, I don't think that if David Blough wasn't in the building, I think there's a good chance Cliff might still be here. But I also think that the reason for doing it was, deep down, Dan Quinn and maybe even some Adam Peters and others saying, it's not the way we want to approach offense. It works. There's so many different ways to make offense work. We've seen that in the NFL. But they would prefer more in the way of I think you probably talked about this, Al. The number one thing that I think we're going to see, and it's a guess, is we're going to see a lot more play action because they were in the bottom third, bottom quarter of the league under Cliff in play action pass attempts. And we know that Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell, two of Blough's influences, are always at the top of the league. And that is protective of the quarterback. It's also, married to the run game in a way in which they're going to need to do that. And I think Quinn prefers that. Quinn's best year, other than 24, was 2016 with Kyle and his offense. Will we see more under center? I don't know. I think that's a little bit overrated at times, but I think we're going to see a lot more play action, and I think we're going to see more of run married to pass in the way that Quinn sort of sees it. And he was thinking about this anyway, but Blough made it easy for them to do it.
There, of course, may well be important things about what happened between the Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury that we don't know, and it is worth noting that he did not get any of the 10 head coaching jobs that were available in this 2026 NFL coaching cycle. But from a 30,000-foot view, the team parting with him remains odd. His 2024 offense was elite. His 2025 offense was middle of the pack in the NFL, despite the offense being ravaged by injury. Why wouldn't you run it back for a third season? Why wouldn't you do, as the QB1's mom, Regina Jackson, said on January 4th in a post on X, quote, officially loading JD5/KK season 3, end quote.
I would have been fine with that. I mean, I would have been totally fine with that. People have to understand 2025, you write off. I mean, there's no way to evaluate the team in 2025. They didn't have their best players playing in 2025. So, yeah, but I also, Al, I don't know how you feel. I do prefer the Shanahan-style offense. It doesn't mean that I didn't love Cliff's offense because he made it work. I mean, they were unstoppable at times. That was a top 3 to top 4 offense in 2024. There's so many ways to do it. So I would have been fine with Cliff coming back. But I think with Blough, we're going to get something that, there's going to be some Cliff in it, but I bet there's going to be more Ben Johnson and maybe even more Kevin O'Connell and Shanahan-style football. I'm hoping that we see that. If we're going to make that change, I prefer that. I asked Jay Gruden last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, what Jaden would be like in sort of a heavy play action boot Shanahan style offense. And he said he'd absolutely kill it in that offense.
You remember how Sean McVay was talked about during his time as an offensive assistant for the Redskins. McVay was with the Skins for the 2010 through 2016 seasons. He was an offensive assistant for the 2010 season. He was the Skins tight ends coach for the 2011 through 2013 seasons. He was the Skins offensive coordinator for the 2014 through 2016 seasons. He now has had an outstanding 9-season run as the Los Angeles Rams head coach. And the Rams, in fact, on Monday morning announced having signed McVay and General Manager Les Snead to contract extensions. David Blough is being talked about in a way that no Washington assistant coach has been talked about since McVay. When you hear that talk, do you scoff or do you get excited?
I'm excited. I'm intrigued, but I know this. I don't have any idea as to whether or not it'll work. He's never done it before. I mean, but the moment he walked into that building, or shortly before it when they hired him, they knew, and the rest of the league apparently knew, this dude's destined for something, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And they didn't want him doing it somewhere else. And he'd be doing it somewhere else right now had they not elevated him when they elevated him. He'd be the Detroit offensive coordinator for sure. And you would have had other teams interviewing him. Look at all the openings, the OC openings and the head coach openings, et cetera. But you would have had him interviewed in so many places had Quinn not done it. I do think that Blough was part of this, we're going to lose him if we don't do something with him right now. And there are parts of the way Cliff approaches it that we're not thrilled with, or we don't love as much as the way Blough would approach it. And him being in the building made it easy for them to do this. But I have no idea if it'll work.
None of us do. And
Yeah.
that's
I mean, I love the people that get into the whole position coach breakdowns. Like, no one had ever heard of Blough 2 years ago. None of our fans had heard of Daronte Jones until they interviewed him. I hadn't heard of him. The only reason I heard of him recently, like at the end of the year, is the guys in Minnesota that I know were like, Brian Flores, there's some stuff going on there. And I'm like, well, what would they do? And there's like, there's this guy in the staff that's really good that they like, but I didn't even remember the name,
Speaking of not knowing who people are, I on the podcast last week, episode 1246, told a story involving you. So we, 2 Saturdays ago, January 24th, had the reports that Commanders Director of College Scouting Tim Gribble was joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had been with Washington since 2002. He, in June 2017, was promoted by the Redskins to Assistant Director of College Scouting. His promotion in June 2017 was part of a front office reshuffling by the team that offseason, off the firing of Scott McCloughan as general manager in March 2017. And the Skins, in June 2017, held a press conference announcing the reshuffling. But this press conference, as so many things with the team were at the time, was a confusing mess. The Skins did not put out a one-sheet or anything like that announcing the new titles for people, many of whom most fans knew little about, including this guy, Tim Gribble. And throughout the press conference, we kept hearing about Tim Gribble. And I remember after the presser jokingly saying to you, who the heck is Tim Gribble? Like, who is this guy?
I do vaguely remember that. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like when they moved on from him last week, like there were people that were like, oh my God, thank God he's gone. Like, I'm like, how do you really know? Like, you don't, when it comes to those, we know as fans, and we don't even know, but we think we know on head coaches and general managers and players. After that, we don't have a clue. And most of the time, we don't even have a clue about coordinators and coaches, really. But we definitely, I think I have an idea of what Sasna does versus Newmark, versus Doug and others in the organization. But it's really on Adam Peters. And how do we judge him? Trades and draft and free agency.
Are you bullish on Daronte Jones?
Yes, because of everything I've read. But again, he's never done it before. So how will he be with the glare of there's the cutaway to the coordinator in the box calling the plays? Daronte Jones now is a name that people know. He's Washington's defensive coordinator. Now, he's been around the league a lot longer. He's 17 years older than Blough. But the guys in Minnesota that I've talked to said that if Flores had left, it was a no-brainer that Daronte Jones was going to be elevated to defensive coordinator to replace him. He was essentially Brian Flores' right-hand man, and I do love Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. I mean, we needed a defensive coordinator that would somehow get more out of less because we have less, a lot less. And that's what Flores has done in Minnesota. That first year in 2023, that first season, they didn't have much. And they were incredible defensively at the end of the year. And not every coordinator can do that. And I think it'll be fun to watch to see what happens. But God, do they need players on defense? That was the most embarrassing defensive season, I think, in my lifetime of watching this team.
Worse than the Redskins' 2016 defense?
2016 was the worst third down defense I think at the time, if my memory serves me correctly, somebody like Barnweller put out something that Washington's third and long, meaning 3rd and 7 or longer defense, was the worst in modern era football going back to the merger in 2016. I mean, 3rd and 12 was like 3rd and 3 for most teams against that defense. But we weren't even near the football all year. I mean, Quinn was upset about takeaways. It's like, you're not going to get takeaways if you're not near the football. And in the Detroit game's the all-time worst. I mean, that was a 7-on-7 scout drill. Everybody was like wide open on short passes and medium passes. It was bad. They got to get players. And the injuries hurt, but I don't think it was going to be a good defense if they had remained healthy.
Much more with Kevin Sheehan in moments, but if you are planning a wedding or you know someone who is, check out or have that person check out cateringbyuptown.com. Catering by Uptown delivers not just delicious food of the highest quality, but also a flawless and memorable experience tailored to your special day. Catering by Uptown's team is dedicated to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. If you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Also, Catering by Uptown is great for parties, so whether a birthday, an anniversary, a retirement, or a charity gala, Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. We're talking about the Commanders coordinator changes with Kevin Sheehan, host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. Which coordinator hire is most important for Dan Quinn keeping his job as the team's head coach beyond the 2026 season? David Blough or Daronte Jones?
Jones, because Blough isn't necessarily only on him. The whole organization, everybody that matters is like, of course we're doing this. So it's not like he was out on a limb elevating Blough or even getting rid of Cliff. But Jones may not have been choice number one or choice number two or even choice number three. I do think Ulbrich would be the defensive coordinator had the entire Raheem Morris staff in Atlanta been fired. And I think that Brian Flores and Gannon both had a shot for this job if they had wanted it. So I guess it would be Jones. But ultimately, I don't even know if it's about the coordinators. It's just about if they stay healthy and they can get better players and they're coached better on defense in particular, they just have to, he's going to be hired. He's going to be kept or not kept based on wins and losses. And I think wins, it's going to have to be more wins than losses and contention, if not absolutely getting a playoff spot next year.
Commanders general manager Adam Peters, Commanders head coach Dan Quinn. Does Kevin Sheehan have less confidence in those guys today than he did a year ago at this time?
I don't. Do you?
Well, it's tricky. I certainly did not think that either guy deserved to be fired this offseason. And I do believe that the number one reason by far for the team's disappointing 2025 season is injury. But regarding Dan Quinn, I was very bothered by the fact that the Commanders not once during their time of being torn apart by injury during the 2025 regular season rose up to author a significant upset win. Upsets in the NFL happen all of the time. You know that. You bet the league. The Commanders, during their time of being torn apart by injury, played at or below their expected level of play. Not once was there what you would call like a coaching win. And that, to me, was extremely disappointing.
I felt the exact same way after that Minnesota game. I remember the following morning just saying, this one you can't sort of chalk up to all of the lost players because you got your ass kicked and you made J.J. McCarthy look like Joe Montana, and he's the furthest thing from it at this point in his career. Now, what we did find out as the season went along is Minnesota's defense was lights out. It was so good. And Jaden played 3.5 possessions in that game because they couldn't get off the field defensively. But I do think the team hung in there. Other than that game, I think that they played hard the rest of the way. And, all of our friends that are on the beat, one of the things that was consistent in their messaging was this isn't the same locker room, feel that you went into after 2023 or 2019. They're all together. This is something that is a testament to kind of Quinn and the culture. So I do think that, but man, I felt the same way you felt after that Minnesota game. That was the worst.
Yeah, I was like, do these losses have to be this bad? Do these losses have to be humiliations? Can you be a tougher out? The Commanders way too often were not a tough out.
Yeah, agreed.
With Adam Peters, so his 2 NFL draft classes is Commanders GM. The 2025 class actually looks promising. What's bothersome is the 2024 class from the standpoint of 5 picks over the second and third rounds, and all of those picks may be whiffs. Interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton, cornerback Mikey Sainristil, tight end Ben Sinnott, offensive lineman Brandon Coleman, and receiver Luke McCaffrey. Things to like about each guy. I'm certainly not writing off any of them, but right now, 2 seasons into that class, Peters may well have missed with all 5 of those picks.
Yeah, I just think you don't know about whether or not there'll be hits for a while. It's not like you can judge a year from now how he did in the 2026 draft. Although number 7 and what they do with number 7, if they pick a player or if they trade back and pick more players, the fans are going to want immediate results. Certainly if they pick at 7. But this past year's draft, you could argue Trey Amos, when he played, was one of the best 3 or 4 players defensively. Connerly Jr. got better as the season went along, and I think he's proven that he's probably a legitimate starting right tackle in the NFL. I don't know if he'll be a starting left tackle. By the way, that's the big thing they got to do, and I'm going to be really interested to see the Tunsil extension, because they have to extend him, and it's going to be expensive because he's a left tackle. And then, Krosky Merritt looks the part to a certain degree. He's not Emmitt Smith, like a lot of people thought, early in the season. Not yet anyway. And I thought Jalen Lane really proved himself as a dangerous punt returner. So it's only a year, and maybe like this year with guys like Sanders still, et cetera, these guys won't be any good next year. But Quinn has said, and I agree with him, it's not a straight line up. It's up and down, with these draft choices. And you can't look at it and really evaluate it until 3 years, unless as a coaching staff, hey, we got a bad kid here, or we got a kid who really can't play. Or in Jaden's case, we got a guy who is legit upper tier, borderline elite talent-wise.
For sure. And that, as much as anything, is what gives us hope. Kevin Sheehan, host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. Kevin, thanks. All the best.
Always love coming on with you. We'll do it again soon.
The Washington Capitals had not had a winning streak since a 6-game winning streak consisting of games from November 24th through December 3rd. Well, the Caps now have won 3 consecutive games.
And a puck that'll come along the far wing. Islanders just going to throw it back to Mayfield, and the crowd comes to their feet. What a performance as the Capitals take down the Islanders here tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, New York. 4 unanswered. Clay Stevenson does it again. Capitals win it 4-1.
Yes, they do. John Walton on the Washington Capitals radio network. A 4-1 win over the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena on Monday night. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 28-22-7. Good for 63 points and 4th place in the 8-team Metropolitan Division. 2 points behind the 3rd place Islanders. This was a big win for the Caps, who in this regular season now are 11-3-2 against Metropolitan Division opponents. The Caps are doing really well in division games, and that the Caps have won 3 consecutive games is remarkable given their current goaltending situation. The Caps' number 1 goaltender, Logan Thompson, he for a 3rd consecutive game was not available due to an upper body injury. The Caps' number 2 goaltender, Charlie Lindgren, he for a 2nd consecutive game was not available due to a lower body injury. The Caps' starting goaltender for a 2nd consecutive game was Clay Stevenson, and he in what was his 3rd career NHL regular season game was great. He stopped 29 of the 30 shots on goal that he faced, including all 18 of the shots on goal that he faced over the final 2 periods, and he made some big saves. Take it to the first period.
Wilson taking it off the bounce, defended by Cizikas, and now Horvat on a break. Able to come through, 1-on-none. Horvat, shorthanded breakaway, and a save made by Clay Stevenson as the puck comes back into the corner. And now for Ovechkin, how about that? Horvat coming down, and Clay Stevenson able to slam the door on a breakaway from a guy that's pretty good at putting the puck in the net, and Bo Horvat. Here comes Dylan Strome the other way, and a puck that is cleared out here by Horvat. This one going to be a little bit easier to handle.
Yeah, really good save there by Clay Stevenson. And then in the third period,
Clay's been good again tonight. I mean, so far he's made the stops he had to make. The one that beat him, that's a dead giveaway in the slot. You can't blame the goaltender on that one.
Now coming back toward Chychrun at the only blemish as Chychrun lets it fly, and a save made by Riddick. The rebound will come out to center, and here comes Horvat, and he's got some room. Coming left side, the pass across to Cizikas, and Stevenson able to make the save. Oh, Clay Stevenson with another shorthanded breakaway stop. He stopped Horvat back in the first. He gets him here, and Cizikas in the third. And a puck back into the Islanders' zone as the Capitals try to set up.
and we heard Ken Sabrin in on that call. What a job by Clay Stevenson. We during Caps head coach Spencer Carberry's postgame press conference on Monday night had this exchange between Caps insider Tarek El-Bashir of Monumental Sports Network and Carberry.
It's pretty rare to lose both your goaltenders at the same time, but how important is it to have a number three in your organization who can come up and do it, Clay?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we as an organization have taken a lot of pride in that over the years, whether it was Hunter Shepard in my time and even dating back. I think Holtz, well, I know he was because he was in Hershey and then he went up halfway through the year. So being able to, and he played real well. Michael Neuwirth, I think even going back to that era. So I think it's important because no different than forwards and defensemen, you're going to go through injuries and things are going to happen throughout the season. So being able to have someone like Clay be able to come up and play really well like he has over the last couple of games is certainly something that the organization thinks is important. And that's why the development of players like Clay, goaltenders like Clay, to make sure they're taking the proper steps in their development so that when this moment arrives, they're ready to have success or potentially have success.
And it's not like Clay Stevenson benefited from the Caps winning the puck possession battle. The Caps won 4-1 despite losing the puck possession battle. They had 24 shots on goal to the Islanders' 30, and per natural stat trick had 36 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Islanders' 56, including 9 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Islanders' 11. The Caps went 2 for 2 on the penalty kill. Also regarding injuries for the Caps, forward Connor McMichael did not play for a second consecutive game due to an upper body injury, and center Pierre-Luc Dubois remains out due to injuries to his abdominal and adductor muscles. He got hurt in the Caps' 3-1 loss to the Islanders at Capital One Arena on October 31st. But back for the Caps on Monday night were two defensemen. Defenseman Matt Roy returned from a 3-game absence caused by a lower body injury, and defenseman Martin Fehervary returned from a 1-game absence caused by a personal reason, which was the birth of a daughter, and he scored a goal. He scored an even-strength goal 5:29 into the second period for his fourth goal in this regular season. He did finish next to last on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 25. The Caps with Fehervary on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had just 6 shot attempts versus allowing 18 shot attempts. But also scoring for the Caps was third-line center Nick Dowd. He scored an even-strength goal 8:46 into the third period for his fourth goal in this regular season. Also, he had a secondary assist that did commit a first-period slashing minor. Caps top-line right wing Anthony Beauvillier scored an even-strength goal 6 minutes into the second period for his 11th goal in this regular season. And Caps defenseman John Carlson scored an even-strength empty net goal 17:35 into the third period for his 10th goal in this regular season. He did finish last on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 16.67. The Caps with Carlson on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had just 4 shot attempts versus allowing 20 shot attempts. But also in this game, Caps top-line left wing Alex Ovechkin had a secondary assist for his 25th assist in this regular season and for his 1,670th career regular season point, surpassing Wayne Gretzky for the 5th most regular season points with one franchise in NHL history. So another milestone for Ovi. The Caps did go 0 for 4 on the power play. Their healthy scratches for this win over the Islanders on Monday night were forward Bogdan Trineyev and defenseman Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath. And so the Caps now have won 3 consecutive games off having gone 8 13-5 over the team's previous 26 games. The opening exchange of Spencer Carberry's postgame press conference on Monday night was this exchange between Tarek El-Bashir and Carberry.
What has turned around for your group?
I think we're I would say probably two things. Our urgency level hasn't been higher this year, so I think through this last stretch, guys understand the significance that essentially our season's on the line and our playoff lives are on the line, because once you get down after the break and you're 10 points back or whatever it might be, like that is, you got to go on like an 18-2 rip or whatever. So I think the urgency level I would point to, number one. And the second thing, I think there's a pretty good understanding. It's not always the case. Tonight was a little bit off, but just of how it needs to look shift to shift, period to period, game to game now. I think it's taken, we've been in and out with it for majority of the year. But I think at this point, it's much more consistent of how it has to look in order for us to have success. And it's hard. It's not easy, as you saw tonight. But I think the guys really, truly do understand to a man of how it has to look.
All right, next up for the Caps at the Philadelphia Flyers, Tuesday night at 7. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1253, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. The Caps are at the Philadelphia Flyers Tuesday night at 7. The Wizards are home to the New York Knicks Tuesday night at 7. Number 18 Virginia is home to Pitt Tuesday night at 9. And VCU is at Fordham Tuesday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Is it safe to say the Commander's name is around just to stay? Is that safe to say from your standpoint?
Yes. And we're actually, I think it's now being embraced by our team, by our culture, by our coaching staff. And so, we're going with that.